I'd like to tell you a bit more what happened in the land of APPUiO since I last talked about that topic. That was more or less 1 year ago at the last APPUiO Beerup number 7. And when I wanted to figure out what actually happened, I figured out that a lot of things happened in 1 year. So let's see. Let's start with the APPUiO managed OpenShift news. So that means I'm focusing on the dedicated OpenShift clusters, so the private clusters where the customer owns the cluster and can basically do whatever they want with the cluster. You've heard from Pesce already that there were a lot of OpenShift updates going on, new versions coming out all the time. First, at the beginning of this year, or at least the first half of this year, we fall a bit back with the update speed of Red Hat, but now we are catching up. I would say the last OpenShift 4.13 update will happen in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I heard actually. So hopefully then we are up to date. I don't know what about the 4.14 release cycle, but I guess that will happen in the next 2 months or so. So be prepared, Team Aldebaran, to have to be ready for the next OpenShift update. Looking back 6 years ago, OpenShift 3, that was a nightmare to upgrade all the time, countless of sleepless nights, and today with OpenShift 4, things are much easier in that regard. You will also see something later on why it has gotten much more easier for Vision engineers. Be prepared for some good news here. We also are deploying our Vision application catalog, shortly called the Vision App Cat. Not a cat, not a dog, it's the Vision application catalog actually. We are deploying that to all clusters. It's not yet rolled out to each and every OpenShift clusters, but soon it will be on every APPUiO managed OpenShift cluster as well. I will tell you a bit more about Vision App Cat later on. We also enabled the user workload monitoring. Back in the days, OpenShift brought their own monitoring system, but it was mostly tied to the system itself, and the end user, if they wanted some monitoring for their applications, they had to reinvent the wheel or do something special for that. But nowadays, you can reuse what's already there and monitor your own workload on the cluster. Yeah, so when we started with OpenShift, and for the past 5 years, we were using the classic Elk Stack OpenShift, Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana to collect logs from applications, display them nicely. Things have changed nowadays. Loki is around. It's a tool from Grafana, and even Red Hat discovered that this might be better fitted to collect logs in such an environment. And since 4.11, I guess, Loki is the standard log collection utility in OpenShift. And for new clusters, we are already using Loki by default. Existing clusters will be migrated over to or on customer's request, actually. Yeah, we are also being able to deploy the OpenShift service mesh. If there is interest by a customer, we are able to deploy it on an OpenShift cluster so that you can make use of service mesh goodies in OpenShift. Yeah, the automated OpenShift maintenance. I put some rockets here because I feel that is one of the major improvements we did this year to the product. It's more like something happening in the background, but the customer also get the feeling about it. It makes our maintenance much more smoother and much more stable than it was ever before, because we eliminated the human error factor out of it. So imagine back in the days, a human had to be up in the night and accompanying the OpenShift upgrade, checking that everything works all right and fixing issues at 1, 2, or 3 p.m. in the night, 3 a.m. in the morning actually. And we invested quite a lot of time to make that better. So say hi to the OpenShift upgrade controller. As always, at Vision, we are an open source company. So if you go to github.com/vision, or no, github.com/APPUiO, you will find the project called OpenShift Upgrade Controller. This one automates OpenShift upgrades. It does that in predefined maintenance windows. So we can have a way to say, this cluster gets upgraded in this maintenance window. So it's not a human has to tap, look at the clock, oh, it's 10 p.m., I start the upgrade. That doesn't happen anymore this way. But we didn't reinvent the wheel, actually. We are just orchestrating what OpenShift already is doing. But if you have an OpenShift cluster and you want to upgrade it, you have to actually tell the cluster to upgrade now. And we automated that on. So we have a way to orchestrate it automatically. But that's not all. We do continuous health checking of all the things going on during an upgrade. We do also check the cluster state before we start the upgrade. And if the cluster is unhealthy because of whatever unknown reason, the upgrade doesn't start. So with that, we prevent to create the broken cluster because the upgrade cannot really work or so. And it also does health checks during the upgrade, and if something goes awry, it alerts an on-call engineer to have a look what's going on with this upgrade, actually. We also do version pinning. So back in the days, we just upgraded what's available right now. But now we are able to pin a version and say, okay, we want to upgrade all clusters to version 4.12.24, whatever, and then it does that on all clusters that way. Or we say we upgrade all the test clusters first to this version, and then the production cluster to the same version. So we haven't really been able to do that before, but with that new process, we can do that quite easily. Also, before we start an upgrade, we can some hooks, which, for example, send a chat message to someone and telling them, hey, your cluster is now being upgraded, be prepared. Or we can send a message a few days before telling the customer, hey, your upgrade is scheduled to be done in this night, and then the customer already knows, the upgrade is now pending on the cluster. And after the upgrade, we can also send a webhook somewhere telling the upgrade is finished, all is good, you can go back to bed, nothing bad happened. That's the maintenance notification. I mean, the pre-post upgrade hooks, they can do different other things like applying different configurations. We can not only do upgrades, but we could also apply prepared configuration changes which have to be done during a certain amount of time in the night. So that's also something you can do with that. And I personally, I'm a big fan of Grafana dashboards, and the team Aldebaran did a great job. That the team Aldebaran actually is not this one here, which I discovered. It's not the team Aldebaran. The team is the one responsible for the APPUiO managed product. So they did some dashboards. Let's have a look at them. So this is the first one, which shows what versions, if there are upgrades available for a certain cluster. So I pixelated them, obviously, but in the real one, that's not pixelated. You can read which cluster has an upgrade available, which not, is there a pending upgrade job or not, and whatever. So we have a full overview of what's going on in the land of OpenShift upgrades. And you can also see here, it's not so big, but if you go a bit nearer, you see that when the upgrade job starts. So that was the one for this week. So you see that this cluster here gets upgraded to this OpenShift version at this time in the night. So that's actually quite cool. So you get a real overview of what's going on in all of our OpenShift clusters. You can also have an upgrade history. You see this cluster here has been upgraded from this to this to this to this to this to this version, and you see there are a lot of in-between versions. So mostly every week a new OpenShift patch release gets applied to our fleet of OpenShift clusters. This one is also interesting. You cannot see it that well, but you see how long an upgrade takes for a cluster. So it started here and it ended here, and you probably see the outlier. This cluster started here, and it took a lot of time until the upgrade was actually finished. Yeah, okay. Whatever happened here, but it took a very long time for the upgrade process to start and to finish. And with that, we can see for each and every cluster what's going on. There are other things you can see on these dashboards, but this was the most impressive ones I could figure out on these dashboards. So good job here. Let's dive into the APPUiO Cloud news. APPUiO Cloud is our namespace as a service offering, which has a shared cluster where many different customers can deploy things on an already existing OpenShift cluster. So we earlier this year we introduced a way that you, as a user of that system, you can choose on what worker compute flavor your application runs on. That's currently applicable to the APPUiO Cloud Zone on cloudscale.ch. They have different worker flavors where you can get better vCPUs or shared vCPUs and so on. So you can choose on which of these flavors your application should run on. We also roll out the self-service application monitoring, so you can just write a Kubernetes YAML stating how to monitor and alert your application, so you get alerts delivered into your mailbox or to your Slack channel, or how you want to have it delivered to your site. In spring this year, we enabled a full self-sign-up feature, so a new customer of APPUiO Cloud can just right away start using it. There is no need to call us or write an email or whatsoever. Just go to portal.appuio.cloud, sign in with GitHub, Microsoft, or Google, and then you are ready to go. That's very cool. It's the first time in Vision's history that we have such a self-sign-up product, actually. And we deployed a lot of Vision AppCat services. What is this cat all about? Let's have a look at it. So the Vision Application Catalog is our self-service product to order services you might need for your application to run. A database, a cache, an object storage, or whatever you need that your application actually fully works. So it's we call it a cloud-native marketplace in the end. So the catalog contains a lot of different services where you can choose from. You just specify what you need in a Kubernetes YAML object, and then the system does its job. It automates the provisioning and the management. It can provision services from the cloud, or it can also provision services which we are adding to the catalog ourselves, because the cloud provider does not offer any. I mean, on Amazon you get everything. So there we do not have to bring our own services. But on other providers like cloudscale.ch, they do only offer virtual machines and object storage and networking and no databases. And on these clouds we bring our own implementation of the service so that you have it available there. And in my opinion, the special thing about this application catalog is that it's not just like a throwaway service, it's an actual production-ready service. So it's monitored, it's backed, it's updated, it's maintained. We take care of the service instance for you. So you do not have to care about it. When you, for example, go to the OpenShift developer view and click on Add, there you also get a catalog, which you can choose MariaDB, Postgres, or whatever. But after deploying that, it's on your own to take care of backups, of monitoring, of upgrading that service and keep it up to date. But if you choose a service from our application catalog, we take care of that. So it's a fully managed service at the end. And important implementation detail, all is based on Crossplane. So we are using Crossplane throughout this system. And Crossplane is the universal control plane of Kubernetes and the cloud. It's a CNCF project. It's not invented by us, but we are making use of it to make that all happen, automate all the things, and have a ready framework available for that. What is available today? It depends a bit on where your cluster is running. So as you have seen, we provide services from cloud providers, so we do cloud service brokering and bring our own services. And of course, developing such a service takes some time, so we are filling up the catalog over time with more services. Today, on the cloudscale.ch zone and APPUiO Managed and APPUiO Cloud, obviously, both products have that. We have Postgres available, Redis, and S3 compatible object storage, which actually uses the one from Cloudscale and gives you direct access to a bucket and to your user. That's on Cloudscale. On Exascale, it looks a bit different. So Exascale already has a few services in their offering already available, and we are making use of that. So you see here, these services are provided by Exascale, and we are doing cloud brokering to make them available to users on this cloud, plus as well the S3 compatible object storage. We are also providing the Vision Application Catalog on on-premise installation. So should you have a VMware cluster somewhere around, or a Hyper-V or whatever, and you want to run OpenShift on there and make use of Vision Application Catalog, today you get Postgres and Redis, same as on Cloudscale. Special thing here is it's not ready yet, but it will be very soon, is the S3 compatible object storage. We learned the hard way, unfortunately, that not every infrastructure offers S3 storage. So we set out, okay, on these infrastructures, we can bring our own implementation so that we can make use of that. It's important for backups, but it's also important as a storage backend for web applications today. Yeah, that's not all. We are actually advancing APPUiO, of course. So let's have a look what's coming. So like Pesha already did, have a look in the future. We are also having a look here what's coming up. If you want to learn more about it and provide feedback, we can do that afterwards to my talk directly. You're doing Beerup, but also go to roadmap.appuio.cloud, where we share our roadmap and we are asking for input of our users. The APPUiO Cloud Portal is an important aspect of our offering. It's continually developed. We will roll out a new version in the next days, which fixes bugs and will add some new features. So there is a good way to check it out from time to time as it gets new features and makes it more usable to the end user. On cloudscale.gh, we are planning to migrate to the load balancer as a service product by them. So until today, we are doing it ourselves, the whole load balancing layer. And Cloudscale will offer their own integration, which is great for us because it, for example, brings us IPv6. We are heading straight into the future for a very new internet protocol, which is around since yesterday, I guess. I'm a bit ashamed of talking about that because, I mean, IPv6 should be there by default, of course, but yeah, you know. We are a big fan of Cilium, so all our clusters, they bring Isobel and Cilium Enterprise, actually, as a default networking layer. And we are currently testing out the Cilium cluster mesh, which allows to connect different OpenShift and Kubernetes clusters together to make services available between them. And that's quite interesting for APPUiO Cloud, where we have different zones. And once we have that up and running and it works as we want, we are able to offer a interconnection way of these APPUiO Cloud zones so that you can run services in both of them and connect them together, for example, for A/B deployments or for multi-cloud deployments to be on the safe side if should one cloud die or so. And of course, more recent application catalog services. We are not standing still. We have a lot on our roadmap, and we will see that later on when I talk about the application catalog roadmap. But let's look a bit behind the scenes that were more the user-facing stuff we are working on, but we are also working on features behind the scenes where you might not see them directly, but you somehow will get used to it over time. So we are currently on the way of working on an Odoo 16. That's our ERP system, which does all the things, billing and so on. And we will have a completely new way of meter billing available later this year, probably beginning of next year. Why do I talk about this here? Because the invoice will change. So already customers from today, they will see the invoice look a bit different. That's why it's important to mention it here. Also, I didn't mention projects in actually before. It's our configuration management tooling, which makes us possible to have so many clusters managed throughout the day. And it's around since 4 years or so. 5 years, I don't know. It started when we had to migrate to OpenShift 4. We had to reinvent the wheel, and it's around since then. And we are now putting a lot of effort in making it more automated. So this configuration rollout will be much easier than it is today for the engineer, and it gives also a huge speed improvement because we are partially rewriting in Rust. So I've heard rumors that for one OpenShift cluster it takes about 30 minutes to compile the cluster catalog with all the YAMLs, and with this partial rewrite in Rust it's about 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah, so quite a huge performance boost. Why do I mention that here? Project Syn is open source. So if you are having the problem of maintaining a lot of Kubernetes clusters, Project Syn might be of interest to you. So have a look. It's on syn.tools. I forgot to put the link here, but if you Google for it, you will find it. So the application catalog roadmap. As said, we are aiming to fill up the catalog with new services. So that's what is on our plate today. MariaDB is an important aspect, then Apache Kafka, Keycloak, GitLab, OpenSearch, MongoDB, and of course others, but these are the most important ones we currently have on our plate. You all see by vision. That means these are managed services for clusters where the cloud provider does not already provide such a service. And there are a lot out there, so there is a huge use of that in such clusters. I'm here to learn from you as well. So I do not only want to talk to you, I also want to hear from you something. So raise your hand if you're interested in arbitrary maintenance windows for OpenShift. That means, actually, today we have predefined maintenance windows. That means you can choose if you want your cluster having maintained on Tuesday morning, Tuesday night. I think there are two different time windows where you can choose, but that's it. So today you are more or less stick with this Tuesday maintenance, but is there, I don't know how many users of APPUiO are here already, but is there any interest in arbitrary maintenance windows, actually? Sounds interesting? Not so? Another thing, serverless with Knative. Today we do not offer Knative on our APPUiO clusters, but we are figuring out if there is a need in the market to offer this thing. Is any one of you using Knative actually? So serverless or function as a service on Kubernetes? Okay. Then I've heard that MLOps with Kubeflow is a huge topic. So MLOps means machine learning operations. Actually, I also am new to this machine learning topic, but I learned that running machine learning workload on a Kubernetes cluster is not so straightforward. There is a project out there called Kubeflow, which enables you to have machine learning workloads running much better on Kubernetes and OpenShift. Anyone running machine learning on the cloud? Oh, good. Then workload security with Cilium Tetragon. You've heard that we are a big fan of Cilium. We are today using it as a network plugin to provide fast and secure network services. But Cilium also offers a more advanced security improvement directly in the kernel so that you, for example, can block syscalls. So if a container breaks out of the container runtime and is able to access the host file system, it might get blocked by Cilium Tetragon, telling this outlier, hey, no, here is finished. And this directly runs in the Linux kernel, so it might be a little bit more harder to exploit that one than going out of a container. So anyone heard of Tetragon yet? Also something new for you. Perfect. And of course, more services in Vision Application Catalog. That's always a good thing. Tell me more about it during beers afterwards. I'm curious to hear what services you would miss in that application catalog to make it actually useful for you. That's already it. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, want to discuss something, I'm around for beers and chips. Thanks.